Today we're diving into a really critical yet often overlooked aspect of upholding our own high standards, and that is holding yourself accountable. You might be thinking, Chris, accountability, isn't that just another buzzword in personal development? Sure, it is. And it's a term often associated with achieving goals, right? But stick with me. Today's episode is not about goal setting. Instead, I want to focus on why holding ourselves accountable is not only essential for our own psychological growth, but it serves as the foundation to uphold our high standards. See, without this foundation, upholding your standards is nearly impossible, period. So let's start by defining accountability. It goes beyond just being responsible for something. It's about owning up to your actions, behaviors, and choices, and even the words that you speak, and understanding how those actions, behaviors, and words all influence the outcome. And then taking course corrective measures or just seeing areas for development of those action, decisions, and choices. Now, I want you to think back to the most recent time you took full accountability for something. I'll start first and share my example. I shared this story in a recent episode 108 all about building deeper connections, but this example is relevant here too. When I realized after I text somebody who I deeply, deeply care about, that it came across a bit passive aggressively, I was not happy with it. I was not proud because that's not what I intended. So I took proactive measures to reach out to this person again and first apologize for the tone and delivery of this passive aggressive message, and then further explain where I believe where I was coming from or where that passive aggressive behavior was stemming from. I took full accountability of how this message came across, which was not ideal. But this was not an excuse, but more to better understand myself and why I unconsciously came across that way, and for him to better understand me. So why is taking ownership of our actions, behaviors, and words so critical, and why am I emphasizing this to uphold our personal standards? See, remember, I've said this before and I'll say it over and over, that our standards reflect our personal values and principles which guide our daily choices, actions, and decisions that we take every single day. And if our actions and behaviors fall out of alignment with our personal standards, we can't effectively maintain or uphold them. Makes sense, right? And if you're unclear, by the way, about expectations and standards still, don't miss the next episode I'll link to. So if you're the type of person that's actively in pursuit of personal growth and development, the idea of accountability will totally resonate with you. This episode will resonate with you. But if you're the type of person that frequently scapegoats others or finds excuses or blames things on external factors for your actions, understanding accountability and taking accountability will be a lot more challenging. Not impossible, but more challenging. So let me illustrate this point further. Do you know someone in your life who's been in multiple consecutive romantic relationships, but they always seem to scapegoat the other person for the fallout of the relationship, i.e. the relationship didn't work out because he or she always did, or he or she was always, etc. Or they might attribute negative events that happened in their lives to external factors like, oh, the sun wasn't shining that day. Okay, so I'm being a little extreme with that last example, but it's to illustrate a point, and I think you get the point, right? Let me know in the comments below. See, when I was dating, and if I met a guy who constantly blamed or was scapegoating the ex for the reason that the relationship didn't work out, i.e. it ended because she was X, Y, and Z. It ended because she always did. It was a major, major red flag. So ladies, listen up. Indicating that they did not take any accountability for the relationship that probably involved two people, maybe more. But anyway, again, you get the point. Conversely, if somebody was praising their ex for their good qualities and didn't vilify them at all and actually took part ownership and accountability for the fall of that relationship, huge green flag. See, such behaviors such as scapegoating others or blaming external factors reflect poor self-determination. Let me explain this further by using self-determination theory in psychology. Self-determination theory in psychology suggests that we all are more motivated to act when we believe our actions will actually impact an outcome. See, this theory is underscoring the fact that our motivation really thrives. We have greater motivation when we feel more empowered to make our own choices. In other words, it means that being self-determined means, again, we have that autonomy and that we feel we are in control of our life and we are the director of our life, as opposed to feeling completely out of control and feeling that external factors are always dictating our life. See, self-determination theory makes two assumptions. Number one is that our need for growth drives our behavior. It means that we have the need to strive for personal growth and development. It's intrinsic to us. Number two is that self-driven, more intrinsic motivation is really the key here. It emphasizes the importance of intrinsic, internal, authentic motivators such as the pursuit of knowledge or the curiosity for growth, and having autonomy is a stronger motivator rather than relying on external incentives like rewards or validation or recognition. Therefore, a self-determined person actually takes full accountability for their behaviors and believes they have full control of their life, and they are more intrinsically motivated. See, our standards, remember, are intrinsic to us because they reflect our own personal values and principles. Are you now starting to see how accountability is fundamental to uphold your own personal standards? When you are intrinsically motivated to grow and evolve rather than extrinsically for external approval or live up to someone else's expectations of you, or even perhaps your own expectations of the ideal that you should be, you're more clear about the personal values that you have and you live by and those principles. And this crystal clear clarity empowers you to design the life that you truly want, and understand that each choice, each action you make impacts the life that you're actively creating. Hence, you can take full accountability for how you show up and make decisions every single day when you wake up. See, you're not here to impress anyone but yourself. Really, I can't emphasize that enough. That there's nothing more powerful than the pride that comes from holding yourself accountable and living up to your own high standards when no one is even watching. Do you agree with me? Comment below if you agree. Let me know. So, how can you hold yourself accountable to uphold your high personal standards? Number one is to identify and clarify your values. This is so essential. First, you need to be really clear, set aside time to understand what your personal values are that will act as a compass for your standards. See, without this clarity, it's as if you're driving around aimlessly without a navigation. So identify what intrinsically motivates you and what you stand for. Number two, reflection and self-assessment. Carve out time every day during your morning or evening rituals, whether it's meditation or journaling, whatever modality serves you best, to reflect not just on what happened that day, but go deeper and assess how you actually showed up that day. Your mood, your behaviors, your actions, your reactions, all of that. This practice will really enhance your self-awareness. Personally, I'll be really honest, my journey to understand and take full accountability in my life and understand the real difference between expectations and standards really stemmed from recognizing that I had a repeating pattern in all of my past romantic relationships. And finally, instead of scapegoating the ex, I wanted to take ownership of how I contributed to those repeating patterns, because I knew I played one part of that equation in that two-person relationship. And three, to that point, recognize patterns, be really vigilant, and try to reflect objectively to identify any patterns in behavior. And 4, get really honest with yourself. According to self-determination theory, the most powerful drive for any behavioral change comes from intrinsic motivators. Intrinsic motivation. See, motivation that really stems from within rather than any external rewards, pressures, comparison, etc., including societal or family expectations, or again, your own expectations of the ideals that you have. To hold yourself really accountable and uphold your standards is so critical to identify the real, authentic, internal motivating factors behind the decisions and choices you make every single day. I can't stress this enough. Being honest with yourself about what genuinely drives you and really fulfills you, and quieting everybody else's opinions is what will align your actions with your values that make up your standards, making it easier and easier to stay committed to them rather than finding yourself months later, years later, let's hope not, asking yourself, why is this happening to me again? Oblivious to the repeating patterns and taking any accountability for being honest with yourself about your own motivations. And 5, finally, park that ego. This is arguably going to be the hardest, but I believe the most critical part in this process of taking accountability. So park that ego. Unless you set aside that ego during your self-assessment and reflection, it's going to be really difficult to not only examine your behavior objectively, but take any accountability for your actions. This ego is often what leads us to scapegoat others or external factors for things happening to your life or for things not going your way. See, social psychology reveals that our ego is often the most significant barrier to taking accountability. The concept of self-serving bias further explains this point that we tend to attribute, anything that good that happens, and like anything that good happens, like the success is like, ooh, I worked really hard on that. Ooh, it's because I was really dedicated. Yet anything bad happens or something that seems like a failure is because of external factors or things out of our control. But if we park that ego and be really honest with ourselves during self-reflection and be really objective, it will be the key element for true personal growth, taking accountability and upholding those standards of yours. So P.S. younger self, your standards, again, are a direct reflection of your own personal standards and values for the life that you are actively creating. They are uniquely yours, meant for no one else but your life alone. So you have full autonomy to set those standards, and with that autonomy comes full accountability to uphold them. Thank you for watching. If you found any value, please do me a favor to help this channel grow. Spread this, share this with someone who you think will also gain any value from this. And thank you so much for spending time with me. Don't forget to stick around to watch this next video, which I think you will also enjoy.